to provide a leadership community in terms of increasing transplants here in our state. So Living Donors Together is the brainchild of the two women you're going to meet shortly. And so I just want to emphasize that as many of the programs and initiatives are done here, everything in terms of our programmatic area is driven through either inspiration by individuals, and in this case, leadership and inspiration by the two folks that you're going to meet. Michelle and Jill were very, very clear in outlining what our goal would be in terms of bringing people together. And as you can see, there are three particular areas in terms of creating increased awareness in our state about living donation. It's to provide an opportunity to network even further with other living donors, and to provide and make sure that those individuals who choose to mentor others, to speak, to advocate, have information that's current. So as we move about our activities, our daily lives, our interactions, that we can be on the same page if you are. And the one thing that brings us all together, those of you listening online, those of us here at the NKF, is that all of us are dedicated to inspire and to save lives here in Wisconsin and, of course, throughout the country. All right, so I think we're ready to jump right in. And so one of those two leaders is Michelle Schuerman. And so I'm very, very happy that Michelle has come to our office here in West Allis. Michelle, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I am Michelle Schuerman, and I am a proud kidney donor. As of August 2014, I donated my right kidney to the father of my best friend from high school, and my transplant center is Frederick Health. I'm also a very proud wife and mother. My husband, Bob, of 15 years, and my daughter, Emily, who's 13, and Kayla, who is 11. I am currently employed at the Aurora Healthcare Foundation and honored to be able to raise awareness and funds for the health field in general, but particularly I also get to support the heart and abdominal transplant program through Aurora. So blessed in my employment as well. Part of this introduction to myself and to Jill is that we wanted to share with you some videos that our transplant centers and or employers have put together to help promote living organ donation. And tonight we will show for you an intro video of myself as well as 3 other living donor and recipient matches, I guess, that was filmed as part of Aurora's annual Celebration of Life event. And with that, John, thank you for cueing the video. I am fortunate to be at the National Kidney Office and have the opportunity to look at John as he is not going frantic trying to figure out why the video is not rolling. But with that, what I can share on the video is that I made the decision to donate my organ, like I said, to the father of my best friend. And that decision was really based off of conversations with my friend Sarah, who was just sharing how sad she was going to be at the thought of losing her father. He had no more than 2 years to live. And through that discussion, and I always laugh because I'm not going to tell you anything about my age, we were on our way to a Bon Jovi concert in Chicago, and we were stuck in rush hour, or I should just say Chicago traffic. And in that car ride, she motivated me to want to learn more about organ donation. And Mr. Hanusa was registered through Freightert, and I felt the team there did an absolutely fabulous job of educating me, supporting me, and building trust in the transplant community, the science and the research and the methodologies and the numbers and the data to support life after donation. And I put my faith and my trust in the system and was very honored to be approved to be a living kidney donor in February of 2014, which was about 3 short months after enrolling in the process. At the time, I was the highest non-relative match that Freightert had seen ever in their transplant history. And so I felt so confident that Mr. Hanusa was going to do well with this match and my kidney, as not only was he getting a living organ, but he was getting such a strong non-relative match. And we are proud to say that 3 years plus post-donation, he is doing fabulous. He is loving my one kidney, and it's kind of a flat Stanley, as Mr. Hanusa is a consultant in the aviation industry, and he travels the world, and he sends me pictures everywhere he goes with me and where my kidney is. Most recently, I was at the Great Wall of China. I've been to the pyramids in Peru. I've been to Italy and South Africa. He recently shared that he's heading back to Hong Kong. So I'm excited for the healthy travels that he will be able to experience thanks to the sophistication and the work of the living organ and transplant teams in our great state and beyond. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Cindy and or John to introduce Jill.
Well, thanks very much, Michelle. I think John is still working in the other room. So, John, if we're able to get Jill's slide up, and Jill, if you can, after I quit talking here, unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and we'll see if your video works. John?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Jill. Why don't you go ahead, and John will put up hopefully your pictures, and we'll go from there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. My name is Jill Dillon, and I am also a living kidney donor. I donated my kidney in July of 2011 to a friend of a coworker of mine by the name of Sarah, and you can see Sarah there on your screen, Sarah and I and Dottie the donor dot. I have been a optometrist with the Marshfield Clinic Health System for the last 17 years. I've been practicing for 20 years. Also been married to my husband, Mike, for 20 years. And you can see my wonderful sons there, Josh, who's 18 and a freshman at The Ohio State University. Don't kill me, all you University of Wisconsin people. And my son, Isaiah, who is 15, and he is a sophomore in high school. My story started actually in 2009. I was actually at my office one day, and a friend of mine who was in his 60s at the time and also a patient came in and told me that he was going to need a kidney. And I always call my kidney story a God story because I immediately heard the words that I should tell him that I would be his donor. Through a series of many different events, we went through many different testings and eventually found out that we were not compatible. We were about to enter the paired donation program, which was new at the time to UW. We were about to enter their program when Lonnie, who was my initial recipient, found out that there was a deceased donor kidney available for him. And he took it, and that was in January of 2011, and he is doing wonderful to this day, just past his 7-year anniversary. I then got to the point where I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with my extra kidney, and I happened to meet Sarah through one of my coworkers, and we were introduced and found out that we were just a fantastic match. And so in July of 2011, Sarah and I underwent surgery at the University of Wisconsin. I had a fantastic surgery. Sarah had a lot of different issues during that surgery, but ended up coming out just fantastic. She and I together have started a group, which I'll talk about later, and we will celebrate our 7-year anniversary this July. And my motivation in doing all of this, of course, is just to get everybody together and connect living kidney donors, learn more about each other, and hopefully spread the awareness for the need for organ donors. And it looks like John maybe does have my video up here. And my video was made through the help of Kathy Schultz, who's on the call here too, marketing guru at University of Wisconsin. She asked Sarah and I to be part of their 50th anniversary video, and that is what our video is. So hopefully it looks like it might be coming up here. Looks like Dr. Mesrich there. Maybe.
Our technical assistant, John, I know thinks that the videos might be really too much for our computers. So John is saying the videos and the computers and the sun and the moon are not going to allow us, it looks like, to show these. So we're having some technical difficulty. So I apologize because both Michelle and Jill, their stories are amazing, and the videos that both of their transplant centers did are also amazing. So we'll make sure that links are available to those videos after the call. So John, if you're able to put up the slides, we'll continue on. All right, so we wanted to take some time to, and I wanted to make sure that you heard a little bit more from our living donors but about, I wanted you to hear a little bit more in terms of what I had the privilege of hearing as I met with them and we were planning. So I'm going to toss this question out to both of you ladies first. What was your motivation in terms of kind of forming and this brainchild that you've come up with in terms of living donors together? Because what was interesting when I talked with both of you individually, and then kind of put you two together and let you talk amongst yourselves, to me, you had some very interesting insights as being individuals that were a few years out from donation. Can you talk a little bit about your motivation and get us started tonight?
Sure, I can go ahead and speak to that, Cindy. First of all, you know, it's been my passion really ever since I became a kidney donor, because I can honestly say that I didn't know a lot about kidney donation. Obviously, many of you on the call are already donors, but I didn't know a lot about donation, other than deceased donor donation. And so after I became a living kidney donor, it really became my passion. I always joke that I have a full-time job, but my passion is not necessarily in my job. Even though I love my job, my passion has become in organ donation. And so when Cindy got us together, Michelle and I, and it just started talking about this, it just became very exciting to bring living kidney donors together and be able to sort of play off of each other, share ideas, share thoughts, share things that are out there, and perhaps even talk about needs that are unmet, perhaps talk about situations that we've been through, perhaps health situations that may have come up down the road that don't necessarily get looked at in donors. And so my motivation was just to really form cohesiveness, form a bond, and be able to go forth and kind of become a group and be able to share our information, but be able to go out and create awareness, the need for donors, and also be able to help other living donors.
Thanks, Jill. So Michelle, I'm going to toss the same question to you because the two of you are just an inspiration to me. But what was your motivation? And after you met Jill, I mean, can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. My motivation was to connect and to gather living organ donors. I've had the opportunity since donation to volunteer, to talk to more folks, and felt that there was an opportunity for living donors to do more, to get together more, to learn more and share each other's experiences. And all of us have such unique and profound and motivating experiences that I wanted to hear people's stories. I wanted to get involved. I wanted to meet more people and was yearning for that. And I know in conversations I've had with my transplant team, with Joan Heimler on the phone, with you, Cindy, it was, where can I get involved? What's happening for living donors? And there's so many of us doing such great things. But the piece that I thought that was missing was, how are we telling that to everybody? How are we gathering people and making sure that everybody is aware? Because you hear about things, but really an effort to bring folks together. And it's been so great in the last 3 years meeting people in other support groups and from other educational opportunities, particularly those for recipients and patients. And again, I just really wished for something structured like that for living donors. We have such unique needs and ongoing health concerns for ourselves as organ donors that I thought it was important that we could really gather and learn from each other. So I'm thankful, Cindy, for you and for the National Kidney Foundation for recognizing this need and this opportunity to bring living donors together.
Okay, Michelle. That kind of leads into the next question, and that I want to ask the two of you, and then I'm going to turn over the microphones to you guys. But the second question that I want to ask the two of you first, because I know there'll be time a little bit later on the call for others to that are on the call to introduce themselves and weigh in on some things that you're going to ask them. But based on the two of you, because you are working and are volunteering in your community, so you are living your passion through opportunities through your transplant centers, OPOs, and other things you've done in the community. But just in general, as a living donor, because what struck me when I spoke individually to the two of you is that you're a little bit further down the line. Your donation, wasn't within just the last year. So you've gained a little bit more of a perspective, if you will, and some of um, the things that go on in that first or maybe even second year post transplant now are in the rear view mirror. But so you've got a perspective. You're meeting other people. So based on your
What did she
experience,
do?
yeah, go ahead, Jill.
Okay. Down when after I first donated, my passion, like I said, was to get involved and to try to find some way to get involved. And what I really found initially is that I really had to go out and seek as many opportunities as I could to get involved. And thankfully, the University of Wisconsin has been fantastic. And as I sort of pestered them to give me ways to get involved, they helped me along the path. But what I've noticed is that the more living donors that I have talked to, whatever spot they are in their journey, wherever they are, whether they're just getting ready to donate, whether they've just donated, or whether they're 10 years down the line, oftentimes they do want to get involved, but they're not sure how to go about that. And I'm hoping that we might be able to, as a group, start to help people go down that path and find their own niche, find their own spot, find their own place. Some people want to get involved to a great extent. Some people have a lot of extra time. Some people maybe only have the ability to get involved once or twice a year, and that's fine. But I see one of the areas of unmet needs as plugging people into where their area is, where their niche is, where their skills or their passion, their abilities, where we can get them involved and really help them be part of maybe somebody else's living donor process. So that's one of the unmet needs I have really seen. The other unmet need that I have seen is down the road for donors and when health issues come up, whether it's health issues that are related to the donation or health issues that maybe have no relation to the donation at all, but perhaps they have a healthcare provider who isn't really familiar with living donors. That's one thing that I have found, is that a lot of my healthcare providers are not really familiar with living donors. They maybe have never even met a living donor. And I oftentimes find myself educating them on what I can and cannot do as a living donor, and obviously most things we can do, but oftentimes they're asking me, what are you supposed to do as a living donor? And so that's one of the areas that I have found is the healthcare down the road. Again, whether that be related to donation or not. And many of the different facilities, you might get a little bit different information. And so being able to kind of bring all of that together and find perhaps even creating some kind of a handbook or path for living donors in their healthcare down the road. So those are a couple of things that I see. Michelle, how about you?
I found that going to the internet and doing a Google search is not the best way to figure out what my needs are. And have enjoyed learning and engaging with other living donors to hear about their experiences, their medical situation, their current health status, because we find that there's a lot of similarities. We go through this process, and again, I felt very educated to understand what life would be like post kidney donation. And like Jill, there's not many of just our primary care physicians who have experience in that. I've had now 2 primary care doctors and my gynecologist, and all 3 of them are like, you're my first. I don't know how to guide you, but we'll do this together. So I just have a lot of questions. NSAIDs or no, protein or no, what's considered an extreme sport, what's a normal feeling after exercise, again, how much water consumption should I be taking, how often can I get my blood tested? There was just so many questions that the transplant coordinators love when we call them back regularly and ask these, but we are looking, as Jill said, for long-term places and opportunities to talk about what health is like, what life is like post-donation. So I really feel that there's definitely an unmet need in that area, and learning from other kidney donors about where they're plugging in, as Jill said too, was a great opportunity for me to feel educated in this decision that I've made, this lifelong, life-altering decision. The other piece for me was, again, how living donors can get involved. So where those unmet needs, where can we volunteer? Where can we share our story? What's happening at a local level? What's happening at a national level? And what's the best way in a individually, but also collectively, can our voice be heard in the community to help raise awareness for donation in general, but particularly living organ donation? And then I'm also interested in advocacy, what's happening, like I said, locally and nationally, what's happening on Capitol Hill, how can we be advocating for our own rights? And I really feel that that conversation is not active in our donor community, and would like to see more conversation around that and hear what others are doing. Back to you, Cindy.
Yeah, thanks. And Brenda, thanks for pointing out that you couldn't hear me, which I find amazing since I'm a loud talker, but hopefully it's a little bit better. I know that Jill and Michelle, when we were putting together the outline for this, you wanted an opportunity, especially at this first session when our group size is manageable, to maybe hear from, take a few minutes, I think, to hear from a couple of people, but more importantly, kind of will outline some next steps. But I know that you have more to share also in terms of your stories and etc. But I want to turn it back over to you, and then if we want to open it up to the group, just let John know and he can unmute folks. I just would remind people that I think we have 13 folks with us tonight, so it's a little bit hard to make sure that we don't talk over each other. So just take a little breath. But Jill, why don't I turn it back over, or Michelle, over to one of you? And Don, are you going to, you, everyone is un, yeah, everyone is unmuted here. So if you have your phone or your mute button on your computer, you will have to unmute yourself. But first, Michelle, maybe do you mind setting the stage a little bit, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, absolutely. So again, as we've talked about, the brainchild for this Living Donors Together group really came out of how can we be engaged? What are the resources? What are the networks available for us as living kidney donors? And there's lots of opportunities for us to engage. It's just plugging into them, knowing about them, and promoting them, and really, again, gathering living donors in the state of Wisconsin, whether you live in the state or you donated at one of our fabulous transplant centers, trying to build that local base of that statewide presence here. And this session here is really for us to share a couple things in a couple ways how Jill and I have gotten involved in promoting living organ donation and connected to the networks that are available to us. But then also, as Cindy said, to hear from those that joined us on this kickoff webinar who are interested in gathering and in celebrating each other's unique stories and life-saving stories. Where are you involved, and where do you find the resources, and where what other questions do you have? So first, I would just like to start off by saying, from an engagement and resource perspective, I really plugged into Freighters after donation and initially asked them, how do I get involved? I want to tell my story. Use me as a resource. I'm happy to help answer questions of any living donors in their journey, because I found great value when I asked that question during evaluation to say, I want to talk to somebody who's done this. I want to talk to a mom. I want to talk to somebody that works full time. I want to talk to somebody, right around my age. And Freighter was able to accommodate that by connecting me to other living donors. And so I was able to anticipate and plan the best that I could based off of, again, being educated by their experiences. And so in connecting with the Transplant Center, the first thing they did was invite me to speak at a National Kidney Foundation event to share my story. And it was wonderful because my recipient and I were both able to tell our story, and we were on a panel just to be able to tell our story and answer questions from the group. Many times that I have volunteered in that format, the room has a blend of living donors, but more so recipients and patients. And I find those conversations equally as rewarding, because the recipients are asking, what motivated you? How do I need to tell my story? What should I be saying to encourage or potentially inspire someone to consider the gift of life? And so that was my first way to plug in and to really get involved and recognize the power and the value of our voice. And through the National Kidney Foundation, I was also able to volunteer at their walk run, help with other community events. Most recently, the National Kidney Foundation had a water station at the Milwaukee Marathon, and we were able to promote living organ donation at that event. And Joan was there, and Cindy was there, and others were there, and folks were so grateful. There were people stopping their marathon to say thank you and to show their appreciation and to tell their story. And it's through telling that story that you realize that there's a lot of us. There's a large group of people that have been impacted by kidney disease or donation in some way. And I didn't realize that going through this. I kind of felt like, wow, am I one person on this island? And I realized there's so many of us. So again, just be able to engage and to celebrate us and bring us together is the highlight of this entire experience this year and our goals for 2018. So again, we're so thankful that you're here with us tonight. Technical difficulties and all, we are so glad that you're here. The other way that I have connected and plugged into the transplant community is by being a peer-to-peer mentor through my transplant center. So Freighter had reached out to me to ask if this would be something I'm interested in. So I think it's a great opportunity for any of us that are interested in this type of mentoring or volunteer experience to reach out to your transplant center and see if it's something that they offer and something that you could be a part of. But there, I'm that person now that I was seeking out during my evaluation period. So when there's a person going through evaluation and looking to connect and talk with somebody and hear their experience, I'm someone that Freighter will consider to be called upon to connect with those living donors. And that's just been such a rewarding and positive experience for me. Again, my passion is to connect people to resources, and through my story, hopefully inspire them to continue with their life-saving decision. And along the way, I get to meet fabulous and wonderful, wonderful people. And I thank Cindy for introducing me to Jill, because we could talk for hours upon hours about the resources and the networks and our kidney story. So with that, Jill, I turn it over to you to share more about how you're engaged in this space.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michelle. Michelle has been involved, a lot on the Freighter side of things, and of course through the National Kidney Foundation, like she mentioned. My side of things has been a little bit different. Like I said, I reached out to the University of Wisconsin afterwards, where I had donated, to say, how can I do something in my area? And there have been some smaller groups around the state, and my recipient was fortunately very interested in getting involved with me as well in getting something started in our area. And UW was kind enough to offer me the assistance of our dear friend Trey Schwab, who unfortunately passed away. But he was really my mentor and somebody that really got me started in getting my local group started. And so my recipient Sarah and I run a local group called Central Wisconsin Gift of Life. And our main mission is to get out and spread awareness of organ donation and tissue donation, and then also to go ahead and raise money and fundraise for the University of Wisconsin organ and tissue donation, and also for the Restoring Hope Transplant House in Middleton. And what we have done is we are coming up now on our 4th annual scavenger hunt. We do a large scavenger hunt every year in Wisconsin Rapids and the surrounding areas. We have several teams that come together and just do a fun day, do some fundraising, and just kind of get the awareness information out there. We have a very unique group of volunteers that got started. We do have some living donors, organ recipients. We also have donor families. We have some young kids who have been recipients. We have one girl she's 3 and she's been a double or twice liver recipient. We have a family involved whose son was a kidney recipient just 4 years ago. And so we have really a kind of a unique group that can see organ donation and tissue donation and from a recipient side. And so we kind of have a very unique group that has gotten together, and it's really been a great experience. We've raised $21,000 over the last 3 years and hoping to up that by another $10,000 this year that we've been able to share with both UW and the Restoring Hope Transplant House. So that's been kind of my main engagement, other than doing some speaking for the National Kidney Foundation and for UW. And then the resources that I've been involved in have been mostly the Living Donor Kidney Support Group, that is a national Facebook page. And so if any of you are interested and are not a member right now, I know a few of you on here already are, but it's the Living Kidney Donor Support Group, and that is on Facebook. And that's a national, across the country. And actually, I think there are some people from across the world on there as well. So that's been another way that I've kind of been engaged and just been able to share some ideas. So that is kind of about me and about Michelle, and I'm kind of hoping that we can hear some of your stories as well. And I know that Carol Glazer, is that correct, Carol? Carol asked if she could maybe ask a question, and Carol, maybe if you could tell us a little bit about your story, maybe a couple minutes, and then just go ahead and ask your question, Carol. That'd be great.
Hi, thank you. I'm not a donor. It was just I had a question. You know, I volunteer for the National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin, and just am very interested. Michelle, I've heard you talk before, and I guess one of the things that I was wondering is how, you know, in encouraging people to become living donors, and it's, you know, sometimes we get very excited about something and it seems like such a good idea, and then all of a sudden struck with fear. One, you know, curious about how you mitigated your fear, if you had it, and two, you know, what you do in talking with people to, that there's nothing wrong with having fear, but to help them through that.
I think that's a great question, Carol. I can't remember having a lot of fear myself, other than maybe when I started speaking at first. And that doesn't take me very long to get over, fortunately. I think maybe my fear more landed along the lines of fear that I would fail, especially when my group got started. It was a lot of undertaking initially, and it just, I guess the way that I mitigated my fear, or the thing that helped me get over my fear, first of all, Trey was such a huge help to me, and he had that experience, and so I was able to bounce ideas off of him all of the time. So finding perhaps a person or a resource that has kind of been there and is able to help you with those types of things, and somebody that's not afraid to tell you that's a stupid idea, or perhaps that's maybe not the way that I would do it. Being able to find somebody like that, maybe connect with somebody like that, and I know that's hard, but sometimes the right people just come along at the right time. And so my fear was maybe that, not maybe doing it right, not knowing how to do a group, and then, which was greatly helped by UW and by Trey. And the second thing probably for me would have been, what if other people don't share my passion? So, you know, it's easy for somebody that's gone through this and been a living donor to have that passion. And I really appreciate, Carol, that you aren't a living donor and that you have that passion, because that's fantastic to be able to have other people who aren't living donors who have that passion to get out there. And so I think that was maybe the fear, was that other people wouldn't share my passion, and that when we had our very first meeting, I would be the only one in the room. And in reality, it really went the opposite way, where we ended up with probably twice as many people at first as what really committed to the group, but that was okay because we had enough interest initially that we were able to kind of, you know, get the people in there then that really felt like they wanted to commit to this and be our core group. So for me, it was finding the core person or the place in UW and in Trey to get us started, and then really just putting it out there, getting the people that were initially interested, and knowing that if the interest wasn't there, perhaps it might fail, but being able to just put it out there and get over that fear. And that's what it was for me, I guess. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I'm coming from a perspective of being a relative of a heart transplant recipient. So, you know, just coming from that perspective, and then doing a lot of work with Kidney Foundation, just being more open to other types of transplant.
Okay, great.
And Carol, this is Michelle. To answer your question, how I heard that was how I mitigated fear in the evaluation process. So I'll speak specific to that. Again, for me, it was trying to find out all of the questions that I wasn't thinking about, feeling educated by the transplant community, and really listening to to my gut and my heart while I was really feeding my brain with all of the education and knowledge I was receiving from the transplant team. I knew it felt right. The whole evaluation process, the whole consideration of this, I felt compelled to do this. There was definitely fear involved, or being a little scared of the risks, because there are risks, particularly with elective surgery. To be quite honest with you, and I share this very openly when I do my talks in the groups, is I don't know if I would have said yes without the assurance that I would receive the additional points, the preferential treatment, whatever you want to call it, and be moved close to the top of the waiting list for an organ. Without that insurance policy, I'm not quite sure that I was in a position to say yes, due to the fact that I am a mother of two and I have young kids, and I want to be there for them as long as I possibly can. And I get a lot of criticism, and not so much anymore 3 years out, but closer to the donation time, there's a lot of criticism for making this life-saving decision because of the fact that I'm a mother. So really having to have that honest conversation with myself and saying that I knew it was the right thing to do. I put my faith in the system, and that's why this group and continuing to advocate for my rights and the rights of other living donors matters to me so much. And I get my energy and I get fueled by these conversations and the passion and energy of others.
Thank you, both of you.
Thank you, Fran.
We have Brenda Cortez on the call too. Brenda has a unique story and something that she has done to share her passion. Brenda, do you mind sharing your story a little bit?
Hello, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, but I can definitely. I know probably some of you guys on here may have heard my story or my presentation already. So I'm the old one, if you want to call it that, on here. That it's going to be my 13-year anniversary of donating in March. So I'm almost 13 years out, and it's good to see that it's come a long way. Like Michelle talked about, having somebody to talk to, and that didn't exist when I was going through the process. I really, really wanted it, but that wasn't something that they did. So, and again, I had small children as well. My children were 7 and 11. And so that leads me into my actual story about my story. So I was inspired by my daughter to write a children's book to help other kids who have a parent or loved one that's going through the process of a kidney donation. So that book came out a few years ago, and that book is titled My Mom is Having Surgery, A Kidney Story. And I don't think she's on the call, but I did connect with a lady on Facebook. She lives in Kenosha, and she's going to be donating coming up soon. And then she did order my book and said that it's been super, super helpful for her kids. So I was really honored to hear that. And then I have gone on to write some more books about organ donation, created a character, Howl the Owl, and his name stands for Help Others with Love, which is kind of a theme that I think basically being an organ donor is all about. And so I've addressed heart transplant, and that one's Howl Gets a Heart, and then Howl Helps Bella came out a few months ago, and that's based on a real life story of a family I met at the transplant games. And the dad had passed away then a couple of months afterwards and was an organ donor. And so that book is meant to explain what does that mean to a child when they lose someone and then they're an organ donor. And then working on book number 3 of that series, the organ donation series, and that would be How Learns About Dialysis. So doing my research a little bit more since I wasn't actually on that side of it, and want to help kids understand either if they're going through it or a loved one is on dialysis. So thanks for giving me the opportunity here to share my story. I appreciate it. You guys are doing a great thing having this group. Again, I had way back when, 13 years ago, almost felt kind of alone and on that island. And Michelle, I just want to point out to the group how, well, you and I met at the kidney walk a couple years ago, I think it is,
Yes.
or if it's 3 years. And we find out after talking about, I had a table with my book, so that's kind of how the conversation started. And then we find out we both live in Franklin and that we actually live 1 block away from each other, which still just blows my mind.
I was going to say, hello, neighbor.
So,
Small world.
yeah. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Jill as well. I think we connected through a Facebook group and found out that we both are in Wisconsin. And I got to go be part of her cool event, not last April, but the April before, and have my book out there and meet all the people up in central Wisconsin. So hopefully I'll be able to join your event this year.
That would be great. Yes, Brenda came and presented her book, and we've just been having a fantastic relationship, and it's wonderful because I'm hoping that we'll get Brenda also up here to do some book signings with some of our libraries and classrooms and such, so which would be fantastic. So Brenda's got a great story, and Brenda, like she said, has been, it's been a while since she donated, and I love it that she's still so involved. I think it's fantastic, Brenda. So thank you. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I appreciate your story, and I thought it was important for you to share it.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet. How about, I'm just looking at the list here. Dana, are you on? Do you want to share anything? Maybe I can't get Dana here. I don't see a microphone. Otherwise,
And in
how
this
about
share, oh, sorry, Jill, I would say in this share time too, if you could share what resources you're connected to and where you're finding a place to get plugged in, that would help us as we continue to plan additional webinars. And Jill will be talking soon about a new Facebook group that the National Kidney Foundation is hosting as part of this Living Donors Together outreach. So we can be promoting things on that site as well. So when you're sharing, if you're not comfortable sharing your full donor story, if you could even just say where you might be plugged in, that would be helpful. Thanks, Jill.
how about Joan? Joan, you have
Hi.
something?
Hi, this is Joan. I spent my career both promoting tissue and organ donation at Aurora Healthcare, deceased donor donation for tissue and organ donation for both thoracic and abdominal organs. And I want to thank you all for your commitment to promoting donation. Although you're living donors, I've heard Jill say a couple key points tonight. One, you're working to promote deceased donation as well. And 2, you also mentioned a liver recipient. And I think when we talk about living donation, thinking about the list of people who are currently awaiting kidney donations, living donation is the only way we can really help bring that list down, as well as for liver donation. So thank you very much for promoting awareness. My question to the 2 of you moms that were living donors, we are currently working with Donate Life Wisconsin and promoting living donation on their Facebook page as well. But we're also working on a video for the Department of Motor Vehicles driver's education. How did you talk to your children about living donation? And have you had an opportunity to go into the schools to talk about living donation as we do deceased donation?
My kids at the time were, well, let's see. So it's been 7. My kids were 12 and 8 at the time. And for me, I think, and then they're boys, and that might make a little bit of a difference because they sort of just said, I told them what I was going to do, and they just kind of said, okay, sounds great. They, when I talked to them about it, I kind of made it very clear that, there was people out there that needed our help, and I felt that this was what I was supposed to do. I didn't make it, I made it kind of a big deal, but not really a big deal, if that makes sense. I kind of made it sound like this is just a natural thing for people to do. And so I don't think that they ever thought that it was strange. They told people about it. I don't think that they ever made it sound like it was unusual or didn't make it sound like it was anything out of the ordinary. I treated it as though it was something ordinary. And so I think that hopefully really helped them. Recently, my son was getting ready for college last year when he was a senior, and he was applying for scholarships. And one of the scholarships, he talked about how much he admired my decision to be a living donor, and that sort of just brought it all back to me that was the right thing to do, because as he grew older, he understood it and admired it. And so they just see it as maybe just something that was part of my life. As far as going into the schools or doing anything like that, I do speak to driver's ed classes on a fairly regular basis. I have another one this week, and I tell my story, but of course I use UW's PowerPoint and Donate Life PowerPoint, and we also talk about the deceased donor need, and then I also tell my story, so we talk about the living donor need as well. So that's been the majority of how I've gotten into the schools, has been through the driver's education programs.
Excellent. And yes, I have not yet spoken to school-aged children as part of my volunteer efforts, but in talking to my own children was such a sensitive conversation, because at the time my daughters were elementary school age, 7 and 9, and didn't want to scare them, wanted them to know and feel really confident in the procedure and in life post organ donation, just as I was feeling confident in the process and the education that I received. And I really wanted my kids, I'm a visual learner, and I really wanted my kids to be able to visualize what I was about to experience. And so I was so grateful for my transplant team for recognizing that and inviting my family in to the hospital for a behind-the-scenes tour, an opportunity to meet my surgeon, an opportunity to see where mommy will be recovering, and where they will be able to put their popsicles and their water and their snacks, and what life would be like during that very sensitive time for everyone. Because definitely my daughters were afraid, and they both internalized it and expressed it differently. And so I had one who was very open with me and would talk about what she was thinking, and I had another who would write her notes down and say, I'm afraid my mommy's going to die. And so it's through that education and through that exposure, and then again being able to see it, they felt confident in the procedure as well. And so I think, again, my transplant center for being there for me and recognizing the value of that. And I also have to, give a shout out to my awesome husband who passes out at the sight of blood. I was more worried about him. And he got nauseous when my daughters got their ears pierced. I was more worried about him than myself in the process. Make sure there's a bed and make sure he doesn't pass out, and all the what ifs, and really preparing my family for this as well was a big part of my experience. And Carol, thank you for being a caregiver on the call in sharing that, because when we tell our story, and I've heard Jill say it often, and Brenda as well, we couldn't do this without our fabulous support network and our caregivers that helped us in the evaluation process and process through this and live life with one kidney. So we definitely want to celebrate the caregivers as part of this Living Donors Together group. And absolutely, Joan, as you referenced deceased donation and living donation, it's like the sky is the limit. And we were very, very thoughtful in starting small and building a foundation with living kidney donors, and then seeing where the opportunity takes us. So thank you for giving us that permission to think big.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. How about Marty? Marty, can you share a little bit of your story and maybe what you have learned or what you're engaged in?
Well, tomorrow will be my 3-week anniversary of donating my left kidney.
Oh wow! Happy anniversary! You're a new one. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great to hear these stories, and I feel good. I still got a little soreness, in my abdomen, but just taking it easy and trying to rest as much as I can.
Wonderful. Great. Tell us your story. That'd be great.
Do you want to hear the whole story?
Well, give us your Reader's Digest version.
Okay. One of the teachers at the school I work at, she posted on Facebook that her husband was looking for a kidney, and he was O positive. So I knew I was O positive. I knew that blood type was harder to match. It had to be O positive. It couldn't be any blood type. So I decided to get tested. That was in April last year, and I did all the paperwork to get tested, and then we had to wait 6 months because they were worried about something with the recipient. With something, he had to wait 6 months. So October came around, and I did all my blood tests and everything, and all the 12-hour day at Freighter, and then in the week after Thanksgiving, found out that we're a match, and a month later, I donated my kidney. So
wow.
That's pretty much a short version.
Good for you. So you haven't even really had time to get engaged or take advantage of any resources or anything because you're still in the healing stage, which is
yeah, correct. And me and the recipient are working together on trying to get the word out, and we're going to talk to the Kenosha News down here in Kenosha and do an article down here, and we're also talking to the PR person with Freighter to see what we can do to get the word out better.
Wonderful, wonderful, and that's actually a great thing that you bring up, Marty, is the media, getting the media involved, and pushing the media to share your story, share information, and the more that they can get it out there, the more that people see it. And you talked about Facebook, which is I would love to know the number of donors and recipients out there, if anybody's ever kept track of how many have been connected through Facebook or some other kind of social media, because it's really amazing, I think, how many are out there and how many people like yourself saw a post and responded to it in a way that perhaps 99 out of 100 people would have just scrolled by and said, gosh, I hope that they find a donor. And so the fact that you responded to something like that is just fantastic. And so the more that you can get your story out there, and the more that we can get our stories out there in the media or on social media, so important. And I love it that you are seeking out ways to do that. And in future webinars, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And in the next one, even telling our story and telling your story and how important that is, and how hopefully people will feel like you're not necessarily bragging, but you're just getting that information out there as a way to hopefully be able to inspire other people. So that's fantastic. Right. I love it. You you guys are looking to get the media involved. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. That's great.
Thank you. Well, we wish you continued wonderful healing, and I hope that you'll come on to our next webinar too and give us an update as to how you're doing.
Sure. I don't go back to work for another month, so I'm off work for that long. So
good. You took a good amount of time off. That's great.
yeah.
Dana, are you here still? Did you want to share anything?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
So I'm not quite as new as Marty, but I'm only 6 weeks out tomorrow from surgery.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I was blessed to donate to my father.
Great. Family. Wonderful.
And actually, the process was fairly quickly. It was only about 3 months. I started in September and had a little bit of a setback. But really, my journey started a year and a half ago. I've lost 140 pounds over the last year and a half. So one of the things is I would have never been able to be blessed with this opportunity had that not started several months prior to my dad actually finding out that he needed a kidney and then going through the process.
That's fantastic. Where did you donate it?
I donated at the UW-Madison.
Great. Fantastic. And how's your dad doing?
He's having a little bit of trouble with the transplant and some medication issues, and he's a diabetic. So the transition and the process hasn't been as good for him, but I, on the other hand, have had a very quick recovery. They were ready to send me home from the hospital the next day. So it's been a very good process for me and something I feel very passionate about advocating for.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. Hopefully things will continue to go well for you and for your dad, and hopefully you'll continue to be part of our webinars and to get engaged and hopefully be able to reach out to all of us and anybody to kind of help you find your spot and get the information out there. That's wonderful. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you. And just one thing about the fear and hearing the different stories. And it's funny because fear never once entered my mind. It just felt like the path that I was meant to be on.
That's wonderful. I was kind of the same way myself, and so I understand that, and that's fantastic. When you feel that way, it's a wonderful feeling for sure.
Yes.
Thank you,
Dana and Marty, this is Michelle. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your stories and congratulations on being in that 3 to 6 week window of recovery. It only gets better. And Dana, I wanted to say congratulations. I see that you are a member on our Living Donors Together Facebook group. So thank you for joining both tonight and on that group. And Marty, if you're a Facebooker, please join us because Brenda's on there, Jill, myself, and we really want to spread the word about this resource to other living kidney donors.
Okay. Yeah, I think I am a member of that group. What was the name of it again? What was the name of the group again?
Living Donors Together of Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I'm very passionate about finding out how I can get involved and spread the word as well.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, Marty, you are correct. I'm sorry I didn't do the see more button. There you are, already added to the group this week. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Dana, do you want to, whether you want to tell us on here or let us know on the group where you're located? That would really help.
I am in the Madison area. I live just north of it, Lake Wisconsin area.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, friends, does anyone else have any additional questions or anything else they would like to share before we go into our wrap-up for this kickoff webinar? All right, so again, we thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Cindy in just a moment just to do some other wrap-up things, but just wanted to say thank you for joining us. On behalf of myself and Jill, we're thrilled to have kicked this off and that you find value in this opportunity to connect as living organ donors. And thank you for helping us to spread the word and invite other people to join us. Our hope is that we can stay connected and build community through not only these webinars and the Facebook group, but also for opportunities for us to gather throughout the year, whether it's an informal event that's happening from National Kidney Foundation or Donate Life of Wisconsin or our transplant centers, or even in informal ways as we look to support each other and attend scavenger hunts. And I know it's on conflicting days, so I'm just going to plug it just a little bit, but there is an effort for the see if we can break the Guinness Book of World Records to see if we can get the most living kidney donors together in one place on April 21st. But that's all I'm going to say, because I want everyone to go to the scavenger hunt over the Guinness Book of World Records event. But then also to stay connected.
Bad timing on that.
Who knew, right? Once we plug into these resources, we find out other cool things are happening.
I didn't know
other cool things.
World record that day.
Right. Well, and other cool things like the transplant games, and I know that other living donors and recipients have attended those on an annual basis, and we'll continue to share more about those types of opportunities and be a resource for this group, and also look to celebrate on those national days of celebration. So National Donor Day is February 14th, for example. National Donate Life Month is April, for example. So again, our timing of promoting these webinars or having these webinars, building a network, telling our story, all of that is leading up for us to know what's happening in the donation space, but also if we're interested in telling our story and continuing to advocate and create awareness, that we have the tools and the resources to do that. And truly feel so blessed to have the talent and the passion and the resource in Cindy Huber and the National Kidney Foundation. You guys have connected me in such meaningful ways and given me opportunity to save more lives and through telling my story. So thank you so very much for inviting Jill and I to be a part of this. We are so appreciative and look forward to the continued journey, because we're going to learn a lot through this process and meet a lot of great people, and that really excites us all. And we'll continue, thanks to Joan's permission, to dream big in this. So with that, Cindy, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
I just have a little bit about her. Jill became a donor in 2011. Since her donation, she has become a passionate advocate for organ recipient created Central Wisconsin Gift of Life, a group that fundraises and educates others about donation. Jill has a unique and wonderful donation story to share with you today. Please welcome Jill, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I was wondering where that hair had come from on my belly. Now I know. So I appreciate you explaining that. I'm Jill Dillon. I am a living kidney donor. My name tag says I'm living, so that's good news. My story is actually a very long, complicated story, but they tell me I have a very short time to tell it, so bear with me. My story actually started out in 2009. I am a medical professional, just like many of you. I'm an optometrist. I work for the Marshfield Clinic in central Wisconsin. I was in my office one routine October morning, and a patient came in, and he was age 64. His name was Lonnie. He actually was, I knew him outside of the clinic also as a acquaintance, but he came in, and in the course of us talking about his medical care, he said, I'm going to need a kidney. And in my head, just as I'm talking to all of you, I hear the words, tell him you'll give him one of yours. So I said it. I said, well, I'll give you one of mine. And he laughed.
So we had a little convo here in the office. So Jill, I'm sorry, but we're just not seeing. We were only seeing Dr. Mesrich and hearing your audio. But I did notice that you posted in the comment section where to find the video, and we'll remind people on the Living Donors Together Facebook group. John, I don't know if we're able to go back to the slide right before this, but just as a little reminder about the upcoming programs, um, you heard from our leaders tonight the importance of being able to share your story when and if you're comfortable. And so we're going to kind of dive into that a bit more. And we have two awesome experts and donation advocates. Kelly, who is the transplant social worker from Freighter, and Kathy Schultz, who wears many hats as a volunteer for Donate Like Wisconsin, and in her day job working to promote both the transplant program and the OPO, the Organ Procurement Organization's efforts in the programs and awareness events. They'll be leading our discussion. Then just to make sure that if you do have an opportunity to speak, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's to a group, etc., it's important to just have some of the facts and the most current, up-to-date information about living donation. So without becoming a clinical expert, though, it is important because I think as Brenda Cortez noted tonight, she's 13 years out, and so the process she went through, the resources were different than the processes and resources now, etc. So we're very lucky that Ayana will be joining us, who works in the living donation area at Aurora St. Luke's and is a very experienced nursing professional, but also has personal experience that she can share as it relates to the many interactions she's had with patients. And then to Michelle's point about not only being an advocate locally, personally, but also there are some very exciting things happening in Washington, D.C. That are positive as it relates to living donation. And so we've recruited Andrew Fullerton from the National Kidney Foundation's Governmental Affairs Office, and he'll give us an update on the Living Donors Act, which is going to be reintroduced in Washington, D.C., and I think has implications across the nation. So as a little wrap up, John, if we could go to the next slide, please. Just a couple reminders. Again, to join and tell others to join the Living Donors Together Facebook group. Beck Loss in our office, our communications and marketing coordinator, who put together this awesome PowerPoint tonight, is and put together the group and will manage that. It's just a phenomenal way. I think we can share more timely updates, share information, etc. In terms of making sure that we're capturing what people are thinking, where we should be headed. Tomorrow, by hopefully the end of the day, you'll see a survey monkey with just an opportunity for you to give us some feedback. Jill and Michelle, we want to give a shout out to you for your work tonight, and we'll be reviewing your comments from that survey. John, you didn't get to see, I think, him in his behind the scenes slides, but has been an amazing resource to us tonight, but has put in many hours to help us get organized for tonight, and hopefully will be with us through our journey. I'm kind of looking at him, he's making a face, but I think that means yes. But more importantly, as both Joe and Michelle have said, we want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. We apologize for our technical difficulties. Technology can, as many of you know, be a friend and foe, so we appreciate that. Anyway, again, Jill and Michelle, any parting comments at all?
I just want to thank everybody for coming and really appreciate it. Appreciate you being patient with us with our first webinar. And anybody else that you know that's a living donor, please definitely invite them to our next webinar. And we hope to see all of you back. And thank you so much.
Michelle, I'll let you have the parting word.
Oh, the pressure, the pressure. Well, I share Jill's sentiments. Thank you guys so very much for being a part of this kickoff webinar. Thank you for joining us in 2018 for the National Kidney Foundation and Kidney Donation 50th anniversary year. And I just want to say that when I told my best friend that I was doing this evening and tonight was the night, she said, make sure to tell our Bon Jovi story. And maybe we'll get backstage passes when he comes to Milwaukee in April. So I'll make sure to send the invite around if he wants to meet all of us living donors. Who knew what the resource could, the benefits of this group could bring to everybody. So with that, I thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. We are right on time. It is 7:30. And thank you again for connecting with Living Donors Together Wisconsin.
Thank you.